On show 481, Tesla's record-breaking quarter, Nissan's long-lasting batteries, and Opel/Vauxhall e-Corsa leaked. Those stories and many more coming up on today's podcast. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or indeed good evening. In fact, wherever you're listening around the world, welcome to EV News Daily. It is your end of the working week edition, Friday 24th of May. And my name is Martyn Lee. Thank you for listening today. I'm here to save you time. I go through every EV story I can find, and trust me, I got a bazillion sources that I go through. It takes hours every day. You know what? I would do it anyway, maybe not as much, but I was doing it before I started the podcast because I'm a bit of an EV geek, as you probably guessed, and for ages now had been looking at the EV news, and then 2 years ago started a Twitter thing just to retweet what I was reading, and then the podcast, and that's how we are where we are. So I love going through the news. Yes, I do, maybe more so than I used to, because you're there and listening, and I want to do the best I possibly can for you. And hopefully it's time well spent, 20 minutes a day on the latest EV news. Hopefully Toby agrees. Maybe it's Toby V or Tobev. Anyway, it looks like it's Toby V. It's kind of come through weird on Patreon, but he's the latest producer of the podcast. And thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Patreon.com/EVNewsDaily. It's Patreon.com. I don't talk about it too much these days because it kind of got to an amount where I was like, wow, that's really generous. But back in the early days, I was always banging on about Patreon at the start of the show. So that's what it's all about. You can support creators if you want to support singers, songwriters, artists, poets, and idiots on a podcast talking about EVs all day long. Well, you can do that, and you can show your support of their work. This is show 481, heading towards show 500. And you know what? I'm kind of interested if today sounds a little bit different. For those that have a passing interest in, I don't know, podcasting, YouTube-y type stuff, I've bought what's called a whisper room. Now, don't worry, I've not spent big. These things are $12,000 when they're new. They're basically like a scream room. It's a soundproof room. And I bought it for £500. So, because someone needed to get shots of it and it was in storage, and I did them a favour. And so got a total bargain. So basically, this is where the podcasts could well be recorded from in the future. But at the moment, it is just a 6-foot square studio with hard walls. So I'm kind of curious to see if it sounds echoey to you, but I've got to put some acoustic treatment in here so it sounds more like a studio. But you know, always dreamed of getting one of these, and well, like I say, I was in the right place at the right time. So that's where I'm recording today's show, and hopefully it sounds okay to you. Thank you as always to myev.com for helping make this show. It is the world's first marketplace, all about buying and selling EVs, learning about them along the way. Well worth following on Twitter, and their Instagram account as well, by the way. Totally free, really simplifies the process when you're searching for a car or maybe selling a car, and it's only EVs on there. Totally cool. Right, ahead of the Green Tech Festival in Berlin, as Berlin gets set for its round of the ABB Formula E, Formula One World Champion and Green Tech Fest co-founder Nico Rosberg says that the awesome series that is Formula E is exactly what's needed to drive the adoption of electric vehicles. Here's Nico Rosberg on Twitter. And yeah, Formula E is so the future, isn't it? It's like anyone that's been following it, anyone involved in it, at the start, you know that like this is where we've come in a few short years. You know, you go 10 years into the future, it's going to be some big business, right? Let's talk about a leaked email talking about big business. A recent email from Elon Musk to all employees. A screenshot got posted online just a few minutes ago before I came to record the podcast. Tesla may well be on track to have the best quarter of all time in terms of deliveries. If you thought that the Silicon Valley automaker couldn't easily up their previous record, 2018 Q4 record numbers, you might want to think again, reports Inside EVs. Now, our good friends over at Teslarati first discovered this screenshot. It's still, at present, an alleged leak because Tesla will not confirm nor deny. It came via Chinese social media. Elon Musk, in the screenshot, says this: looks real, but Tesla won't confirm or deny as of the point of recording this podcast. It could well be different by the time you listen. Elon said this, and I quote, "As of yesterday, we had over 50,000 net new orders for this quarter. Based on current trends, we have a good chance of exceeding the record 90,700 deliveries of Q4 last year and making this the highest deliveries and sales quarter in Tesla history. In order to achieve this, we need sustained output of 1,000 Model 3s per day. Almost all parts of the Model 3 production system have exceeded 1,000 units on multiple days. Congratulations. And we've averaged about 900 a day this week. So we're only about 10% away from 7,000 a week. If we rally hard, we can do it. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your great work. That was off the bottom of the page. Elon, end quote. I'll put a link to Inside EVs in the show notes if you want to read more. Moving on to consumer reports, and if that was the good news for Tesla today, this is going to be uncomfortable reading, if they even care what consumer reports say. It's not a thing that we have in the UK, so I'm presuming it's a thing in the US. They've claimed that the latest version of the semi-autonomous driving features that Tesla has poses, and I quote, serious safety concerns. They make automatic lane changes that are overly aggressive, don't properly anticipate human behaviour. In tests, it would frequently cut off other drivers, pass on the right, and have trouble anticipating fast-moving vehicles approaching from behind, says the Engadget website today. Well, the outlet argued that companies should need to provide public evidence of any semi-autonomous system safety before it's made available to buyers. It also contended that Navigate on Autopilot is more trouble than it's worth. It's akin to monitoring a kid behind the wheel for the very first time, says Consumer Reports. Jake Fisher from the publication was not complimentary. While Tesla was still ahead of its rivals, Consumer Reports thought that it was safer and more relaxing to just perform the lane changes yourself. I'll pop a link to Engadget in the show notes if you want to read more for yourself. Moving on to Vauxhall/Opel, it's called different things around the world, but a pure electric version of the next generation Opel Corsa/Vauxhall Corsa is coming, as previewed by the leaked official image on Auto Express today and on Motor1.com. When it goes on sale in the UK next year, the Corsa E will be the first new product produced by Vauxhall since it came under the ownership of Peugeot Citroën, in other words, PSA. It's also going to launch the brand's strategic push towards electrified and pure electric cars, says Auto Express. Well, the Vauxhall Corsa E will sit on the same underpinnings as the recently released Peugeot E208. It means it should have a range of 211 miles, a 50 kilowatt-hour battery, and a 134 brake horsepower electric motor on the front wheels. Charge times should be identical to the E208, 80% charge in 30 minutes using a 100 kilowatt fast charger. And if those specs sound achievable, they probably are for a car like that. And if I were Renault, for instance, I would be looking at the market now, the E208, the Vauxhall/Opel Corsa. I would be looking to get some firm details of the new Renault Zoe / whatever it may be called, because I can't say what it may be called, but it's a name that you've heard before, but not by Renault. There you go. There's my cryptic clue for today. If I were Renault, I would want to get those at least details out there, because at the minute I'm thinking, you know what, these cars are going to be desirable, and maybe Renault's losing out some of the mind share, but we'll see what they choose to do. Let's talk Mercedes-Benz. The EQC recently entered production, but it's just the first of many all-new electric cars from the EQ brand. Mercedes busy at work developing a smaller car, and maybe better for cities, maybe better for what you want. It's going to be called the EQB, and it's been caught in camouflage by Motor1.com. The EQB is related to the Mercedes-Benz GLB, and it's, as well as obviously its all-electric cars in the EQC. It's going to get a plug-in version too, a hybrid version. Now the EQB, rumours are pointing at around 300 miles on the WLTP test cycle, which is really impressive. The GLB, which is going to be a plug-in hybrid, is going to be about 62 miles of electric range. I'll pop a link to Motor One in the show notes if you want to read more. I mentioned Renault and the Zoe. Vulog, V-U-L-O-G. Vulog is the supplier of shared mobility technology. These are buzzwords, aren't they? Shared mobility technology. Think about car sharing, right? And they've announced a new partnership with Renault. It's going to result in production of the car being car sharing ready as it rolls off the factory production line, says Inside EVs today. Starting immediately, Renault is going to make Renault Zoes on their production factory line with Vlog's car-sharing technology built into the car. In effect, if you're a fleet and you're interested in car sharing, you can now order a Renault Zoe equipped with the technology right from the start, coming off the factory line. No retrofitting needed, and you are going to save some cost as well, we presume. Well, the partnership between Renault and Vlog suggests that car sharing is now popular enough to put it on the production line by the end of this year. 2,500 Zoes are going to have the car sharing technology built into the car in Europe, South America, and the UAE. Let's move on to how we pay for roads in the future. At the moment, a lot of tax comes from fuel. Here in the UK, nearly every penny we pay on fuel is taxed. However, EVs are going to change the whole dynamic. How do we pay if we're all EV drivers? Texas is considering whether to impose additional registration fees on EVs and hybrids as well, following nearly half the states that already impose higher fees on battery electric vehicles to compensate for lost gas taxes for building and maintaining existing roads and highways, says the Houston Chronicle today. Well, the bills in Texas are unlikely to get through the legislative session, which ends on Monday, but the issue is almost certain to resurface as Tesla and other states wrestle with depleted highway funds as cars become more fuel efficient and the gas tax to the federal areas remains unchanged from 26 years ago. Meanwhile, a Green Car Report's Twitter poll, actually which finished, I think, today or around now, times perfectly well with this story, as I've just seen the results. The largest group of respondents to the Twitter poll by Green Car Reports agreed that per-mile fees is the fairest. The farther you drive your EV, the more you would pay in your tax. With 42% of respondents choosing the option, some commentators noting that many states already require safety inspections, which record your vehicle mileage, and that could be a way of then charging you. I'll put a link to the Houston Chronicle and Green Car Reports in the show notes. Right, a couple more stories. Let's talk the story of mate Rimac. Rimac Automobili, which might just be the most unlikely of success stories. He started off building things in his garage, and then 10 years later, there were companies throwing money at him for that technology. In 2019, he established Rimac. He was 21 years old at the time, and mate Rimac from his garage is now employing 500 people. The company has announced an influx of cash. Hyundai and Kia are the latest ones that I reported on a couple of days ago, dumping $90 million into the company for their technology and for a strategic partnership. I'll pop a link to that article in the show notes. Well, talking Hyundai, they are going to launch their electric Kona somewhere that isn't currently on sale. It's not going to be a big market for them, though. We're talking India. And in July, they launched their electric Kona. It's going to be built in India, local assembly to keep the prices down. It's going to be the small battery pack, the 39.2 kilowatt hour. And they plan on selling 60 of them a month. Now, the Cupra is the brand that comes from Seat, which is the brand that comes from VW. The Cupra Formentor is an SUV, made its dynamic debut around the roads of Cap de Formentor. It's in Mallorca. It's the place that gives it its name. It's a plug-in hybrid, it's an SUV, and it's the first model developed specifically by Cupra, and it made its public debut at the Geneva Motor Show. Now, according to rumours, it's going to be on sale at the beginning of next year. Another plug-in hybrid coming. Quick update on Nissan. 2 stories to finish off today. What are we at? 17? Not quite. We're doing okay for time, actually. Nissan's former chairman, Carlos Ghosn, appeared in a Japanese courtroom today for a hearing on his trial of accusations of financial misconduct. It was the first of a series of hearings to iron out the logistics for Ghosn's actual trial. The trial date has not been set, and experts say it could be months away. Writes sfgate.com. Well, Carlos Ghosn insists he's innocent and says that he was targeted in a conspiracy by others at Nissan, which is allied to Renault in France. They've seen their profits nosedive amidst the whole fallout of the Carlos Ghosn affair. And talking Nissan, changing subject, data from their batteries used in the Nissan Leaf, the world's most popular EV, I should add, the batteries are going to outlast the vehicle from 10 to 12 years. According to Francisco Carranza, he is the MD of Renault Nissan Energy. Now, Nissan monitors everything from charging patterns to battery degradation, in other words, how quickly the battery wears itself down. Batteries are not infinite. On more than 400,000 Nissan Leafs that it's sold since launching the first Gen 1 in 2011, says Auto News Europe. They say that based on average lifespans of the car itself, the metal bits of bodywork, on average about 10 years. Carranza put the battery life at 22 years. So what do you do for the next 12 years? He said this: we're going to have to recover those batteries. Nissan's been looking at ways to boost revenue from electric cars and its customers as traditional revenue streams dry up in the switch from combustion to electric. Now, after sales revenue, says Carranza, will massively suffer from electrification. So they're working out, can they do something with those batteries that is an ongoing revenue stream? The whole industry is in flux. It's why I love studying it. I love talking to you about it, because it's so many questions. And if anyone says they know all the answers, that's BS. No one has the answers yet, because this is changing day by day. And certainly in years to come, we'll all say, well, blimey, we lived through that period of incredible change. Let's talk about our question of the week this week, thanks to myev.com. It's a good one. Does where your car is made influence your buying choice? Does location of production influence your decision making? Let me know, yes or no, and why. And you can email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com. Leave a comment on Facebook and YouTube. On to the endy bit. Well, that makes 213 patrons of the podcast. Thank you for supporting us. And if you would like to find out what it's all about, it's Patreon, patreon.com/EVNewsDaily. Look at that, 480 previous shows for you to listen to anytime you want to. And the new ones, well, you can get them first and free and automatically by subscribing on a podcast platform, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, I should say. They've rebranded it. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, the big apps like Overcast. We put the audio on YouTube, and it's in Spotify, so many places as well. If you want to get any of those platforms on your device, your desktop, please do and hit subscribe. And if you want to leave a little review, that'd be amazing as well. I think the reviews mostly are all about Apple Podcasts. In the meantime, come and say hi on the social networks by searching EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.